As you can see, we have upgraded our set. These are my TBRs, so if any of these are bad, I guess let me know now. I have already started reading this, In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts. I'm most excited to read All's Well by Mona Awad, because I absolutely loved Bunny. I hated Rouge. I think that I've heard the best things about this book. And it's about theater kids. What's not to love? I've got quite a few fantasy books under my belt in the last couple of months. I wanted to reread The Cruel Prince because I had never read there's a novella that comes after The Cruel Prince and before The Wicked King in chronological order, I guess, called The Lost Sisters, and it is letters from Taryn's perspective to Jude explaining everything that happened with her and oh my god, what's that asshole's name? Between her and Locke. So I had to reread The Cruel Prince to refresh myself before reading that one. As always, was an enjoyable read. I don't know if this is a young adult series. I would kind of classify it as older young adult. The series is called The Folk of the Air. It starts out absolutely insane opening. The main character is named Jude, and she has a twin, Taryn. They have an older half-sister named Vivi. They have the same mom. Their mom ran away from her fairy husband that she had Vivi with to live back in the human realm with her human husband, who are Taryn and Jude's parents. And the opening of the book is Vivi's like fairy dad showing up and murdering both of her parents for this betrayal. And they all witness this. I think Jude and Taryn are like 6 years old and Vivi's like 8 or 9. So they're obviously traumatized. Vivi's father, he's like, well, since I killed your parents, I should be responsible for you. So he adopts all of them and raises them over in Fairyland. They're kind of upper class, and so they're raised alongside the king and queen's children, and one of these children is Prince Carden, and he is an asshole, and he and Jude have a rivalry that's basically all construed out of misunderstandings, but really, really deep misunderstandings, really misunderstanding each other's morality. The Cruel Prince, I rated 3 stars. I'm not a fan of the beginning. I don't like the spy plot line. It's necessary for the plot, but like, I don't know, it just doesn't seem very well fleshed out. But the thing I love about this series and this book specifically is this really complicated dynamic between Jude and her sister Taryn. Jude is tired of being treated badly by the fairies because they're human, so they're treated lesser than and bullied a lot. And Jude's reaction is to fight back. And Taryn wants Jude to just stuff it and be quiet so that the tension can blow over. In The Lost Sisters, this is the novella that comes after the first book, The Cruel Prince. This is a series of essentially apology and explanation letters from Taryn to Jude about this horrible romantic situation that happened between them. Taryn was being courted by Locke, one of the best friends of Prince Carden. He simultaneously courts Jude, and Taryn knows that it's happening, and Locke slowly warms her up and convinces her into letting this happen to prove herself to him. So you kind of get to go through that journey with Taryn. The Lost Sisters, I'm rating 4 stars. I love the additional background, and I think it adds a lot of texture to Taryn that we don't get in book 1 and that we need for book 2, because oh boy, does Taryn make some more bad choices. I think that Taryn can often be overlooked because she's like the good twin, she's the nice twin, so she doesn't seem as complex compared to Jude, but I like that she has just as much going on, and that she's just as brutal and unempathetic and savage in some ways. She is just a mess. I love Taryn and Jude because they're both such messes because of the circumstances that they're in. Jude and Taryn have reacted to these things in such different ways. Jude is trying to become them in the sense that she wants to be ruthless and heartless and brutal and look out for herself and look out for her interests and the people that she loves and gain power and prove to everybody that she deserves everything that she has in their society and that she deserves their respect. Taryn's response is to be like the fairies. Locke is convincing her that she is being like the fairies. He convinces her that the fairies love in a different way and that it's okay that he's never going to love her the way that she loves him, and that to prove herself, she needs to prove that she's okay with that. They're both trying to prove themselves in these ways that are conflicting with each other because partly because they're twins, people identify them together and are kind of unable to separate their reputations from each other. I loved The Lost Sisters. I think that this kind of filled in so many blanks and added so much context to what was going on with Taryn. The way that Holly Black divulges information is so ridiculous. She is so withholding. You have to keep reading her next book and keep reading her next book and keep reading her next book to fill in the blanks of the previous books. But for some reason, when she does it, I think it's fun. I also recently reread The Titan's Curse, which is the third book of the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan. I don't know, I think this one has always been my least favorite of the whole series. I don't exactly know why. The Titan's Curse, I'm rating 3 stars. This is book 3, so I'm not going to explain the plot, but I found it a bit bleak and unmemorable compared to the other books. I'm excited to finish the series and get to move on to the last Olympians series, because that's really what I'm just trying to catch up so that I can read the last Olympians and then I can read the newest Percy Jackson book that just came out a couple years ago. I finally finished A River Enchanted. I started this months ago. It expired when I had like 1 hour left, by Rebecca Ross. This is a romantasy. Same thing with The Cruel Prince. If the romance is a huge part of driving the plot forward, then that's a romantasy, right? A River Enchanted starts out with our main character, Jack. This is very, I think it's Scottish. This is kind of like a Scottish inspired story. Jack is a bard that used to live on this isle. He went away for college to be a bard. He is summoned back by the king with kind of no explanation. He hasn't been here at, I don't know how long it's been. It's been like 6 years or something. Maybe even longer than that. He hasn't even seen his mom all this time. And when he goes back, he has a little sister. Oh my god, so it must have been longer than that. It must have been like 12 years he's been gone. And he's like, what the fuck, mom? And she's like, I don't know what to tell you. His mom, like, she's really secretive because she's able to weave magic or weave spells, like literal weaving. She'll like weave him shawls of protection and that kind of thing. And to imbue it with magic, she has to use a secret. So he goes to meet with the king, and it turns out the king hadn't summoned him at all. It was his daughter. Adara. He and Adara, when they were kids, kind of grew up together, but they were really competitive and would get on each other's nerves or whatever. Adara says, oh, well, if I had signed the letter as myself, then you wouldn't have come. I had to pretend I was my dad or whatever. And he's like, that isn't really true. If anyone tries to trick you into thinking this is an enemies to lovers, it is not Al. They got in one, like small physical scuffle when they were like 8 years old, and they've had goo eyes at each other since then. So Adara tells Jack the reason she summoned him is the island needs help. There have been young girls going missing. They seem to be getting kidnapped, and they are worried about them getting kidnapped by the spirits, or that they're being kidnapped by the like rival village on the west side of the island. Adara and him are trying to figure out what's going on with the missing girls. I ended up rating this book 4 stars. I really liked the sweet romance between Jack and Adara. It was just really, I don't know, it was really wholesome. There's also like a secondary romance between a couple that's already married, and it was kind of cute. Besides Adara and Jack, the other characters are a little bit more nuanced. They have done some things that are quite questionable in their lives, so it makes the romances a little bit more complicated. This wasn't really a 5-star for me. It was just a little bit too, like, cozy. I need to read the second book. I keep putting it on hold, and then it is available, and then I'm just, like, not in the right mood to read it. I don't want to talk about Mistborn. Okay. I read Mistborn, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. More of a classic fantasy. I would call this YA. I think this would be a better sell for me if this were classified as YA. In this world, there's kind of 2.5 types of people. There's Ska, and then there's noblemen. Those are the main 2 types of people. Ska they're treated like a lesser kind of slave race. They have plantation Ska, and then they have Ska working the streets, and then they have prostitutes and whatever. Vin, our main character, is 14 or 15 years old, and she is a Ska, works on a thieving crew. You know, they work in the underworld. For a long time, she was raised by her brother, and her brother was like, Vin, everyone's gonna abandon you and betray you, and then he abandoned and betrayed her. I don't know. One day, he just disappeared, and Vin has been upset about it ever since. She's been kind of stuck in the same thieving crew that he had left her in at the time. Vin experiences this thing that she calls luck. It's a kind of power that over time she kind of builds up. She can feel it inside of her. When she's in an interaction, she can use her luck to dampen people's emotions, usually like suspicion of her or anger at her. She's treated really badly, like by the guy who leads the thieving crew. Like, he beats people, and it's like heavily implied that if she isn't careful, that she could be sexually assaulted at any time. The guy who runs the thieving crew, he seems to kind of suspect something with Vin, and so he brings her along on a lot of tasks where he is pretending to be a nobleman to do scams. He brings her along for a scam, and a couple people notice that she uses this luck during this scam. She uses it to make somebody less suspicious. One of these people is Kelsier, and Kelsier is kind of our other main character. He notices Vin has this power, and he highly suspects that she is actually what's called a Mistborn, and a Mistborn is somebody who has all of the power capabilities that somebody can have. Kelsier kind of swoops in and quickly adopts Vin. He wants to bring her in on this mission that he has to overthrow the current king and empire or whatever. I rated this book 3 stars. I like a lot of things about it, and I also dislike a lot of things about it. I like Vin's character. I think she is by far, unfortunately by far, the best character. She is somebody who has been living in survival mode her entire life. She was treated poorly by her mother as a child, and then her mother died, and she was treated poorly by her brother, and then she was on her own after that. So her emotional story is basically like having these like 6 new dads on this new thieving crew that's gonna overthrow the empire, and they all like her and respect her and teach her everything they know and believe in her, and she has never experienced these things before. It's a sweet story about her learning to trust other people and learning her personal identity, which she's never been able to explore before. That's kind of why I think this should be a YA book, because it's just like, that's cool. But most people over the age of 18 have kind of like already been through that emotional journey. It's just the kind of story that makes more sense to be aimed towards teenagers. Something that I didn't love about the book was that there were no other female characters besides Finn. There's sort of a second female character. Well, there's maybe 2 second female characters introduced in the second half of the book. This one woman blackmails Vin, and then the other one was evil, so Vin had to kill her. So, like, I guess this is something that Brandon Sanderson has like brought up before, and he's talked about gender bending. If he were to gender bend any character, it would make most sense for it to be Kelsier, because most of the other characters' stories depend on like their wives or female daughters having been raped and killed. There were also just so many little annoying things that bothered me. I hated, there's this one character that's supposed to be like this annoying philosopher. I know he's supposed to be an annoying philosopher, but he was the worst kind of annoying philosopher, which was one that is philosophizing or asking questions about things that he should have thought about before this point in his life. I felt like the types of questions he was asking didn't make sense for a character that grew up in his environment. I felt like they were kind of Christian-centric in a way that doesn't make sense in story. There's also another character that like pitches different concepts of religions the entire book, and I didn't find that charming. There were like a couple major, honestly, maybe just one major story point that just made absolutely no sense to me, where one of the characters sends his people to war a little bit prematurely. What the fuck? Why? I don't understand the character motivation. It's an insane move. It just really didn't make any sense to me. So that kind of got on my nerves. I think one of people's favorite things about this story is, or this world, is the magic system. I really liked the way that the scenes where Vin was using the magic were written. I thought they were really engaging. I thought the action scenes were really good. But I didn't necessarily think that the magic system was the most revolutionary thing in the world, although I figure that it might be expanded on because there are more medals in the world than 12 or however many. So I also read the Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This was just a general fantasy. This was a really interesting book. I really thought that I was gonna love this book when I started it. I was so on board at the beginning. It starts out with our main character, Zachary. He's a college student, and one day he's at the library and he finds a book that has a title but doesn't have any other information on it, no author name or publication or anything. In the book, it has a series of short stories that are kind of interconnected with each other, and one of the short stories is about him and was about a real experience that he had. When he was a kid, he was walking one day and he saw a mural of a door painted down in this alley wall. He went up to the door and he could clearly see that it was painted on, but it was really realistic. He went to go grab the doorknob and turn it, and in the end he doesn't, and he just walks away. And the next day he goes to look for the door and it's been painted over. In the story that he's reading in current day, it's like he missed out on his big adventure. If he had reached out and grabbed the doorknob, then the doorknob would have turned and he would have gone through and he would have ended up in this magical world. And Zachary is like, what the fuck? Like, that's what I've always wanted. This book was published, oh my god, let me look when this book was published. Okay, this was published in 2019. This book is like so of the time that it was written. Like, it's so 2016. And so he references all these things he grew up with. He's thinking about, like, Narnia and Harry Potter and Percy Jackson and Adventure Time. He had always dreamed that one day, like, he would fall into a magical world like all these other children do and all these other pieces of media. He now, current day, knows that he lost out on that chance, and he starts obsessing over this book to try to figure out where this book came from. It brings him down this crazy rabbit hole, which ends with him going into this magical realm, and there's all this adventure. Okay, that's how the book starts. I loved that start, and I loved that premise. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so funny. Like, it's about this kid that missed out on his dreams of having this adventure, this fantasy adventure as a kid, but now he's going to get to have that as an adult. I rated this book 3 stars. Honestly, maybe more like a 2.5. I hesitate to rate anything lower than I rated ACOTAR. I might actually have to go back and lower my ACOTAR rating to give me some more wiggle room, because like, this isn't worse than ACOTAR, but I just didn't enjoy it. There was nothing wrong with it, you know? I liked the character of Zachary. I liked this kind of secondary character that you learn more about later, Kat. I liked the writing and the flow of the story. I liked a lot of the individual elements of the story, a lot of the things the story was trying to do. There's all this messaging about stories and what they are and what they mean, and about how stories are just change and they don't ever have endings and they all morph into each other and all this stuff, okay? So I understand that the book was trying to represent that on the pages with its own form, but I wasn't feeling it. Between chapters, there would be these interludes, which would be portions of different books and stories that Zachary has picked up throughout the book. I just didn't love the little interludes, and I didn't love how they were connecting into the story. I felt so overwhelmed the entire time. I was being ambushed with all this symbolism, the keys and the bees and the trees and the ribbons and the chains and the swords and the cats. All of this like imagery and symbolism and the doors is being thrown at you through the whole story, because that's the story that Ezra's going through. But then you're being ambushed with these concepts about stories and storytelling, and then you're being ambushed with the ever-changing setting, because it's this like really magical setting that's supposed to be really dreamy and winding and just like the stories. I get it, it was just a lot. And then on top of that, this love story between Zachary and his love interest, and this weird dynamic that I never got a good grasp of between our main characters, Zachary and Mirabelle. There's this weird tension that's happening in the book that I don't I don't understand what it is. Like, I feel like it's supposed to be telling me something, but I'm not picking up what it's putting down. That might be on me. Those are all of my recent fantasy reads. I have a bunch of other stuff I need to catch up on too. A bunch of lit fic and sci-fi that I've read recently. So I'll be talking about those soon. Bye!